Hello there, good evening. Welcome to Look North, our top story tonight.
Right, get up the door!
Drugs and weapons seized plus 32 arrests in a major operation targeting crime gangs in North Yorkshire. We also hear from a mum whose son was a victim of county lines gangs.
What they did over time was got him more and more addicted, more and more distanced from school, and then started winding up his debts to a point where he felt he had no choice.
Kate now wants to help other parents whose children are being groomed. Also tonight, an inquest hears about the death of a 5-year-old boy who inhaled a drawing pin. A steep rise in reports of potholes. You've been sending us pictures of some of the worst. And why bird watchers from across the UK have been gathering at a Derbyshire beauty spot.
A bitterly cold week to come. There's been a few snow flurries along the coast. This was Filey earlier today. There are some snow showers in the forecast, but will they affect you? Join me for that week ahead forecast.
Hello there, I hope you're well. Thanks for your company tonight. We start with a major operation in the ongoing fight against urban drugs gangs in North Yorkshire. Tonight, we'll see how police in York have joined forces with officers from Merseyside to arrest 32 people. We'll also hear from the mum of a 16-year-old boy who died after being groomed by a county lines gang. Now, county lines is where illegal drugs are transported from one area to another, often across local authority boundaries. Phil Bodmer and cameraman Malik Walton spent 2 days with officers on the operation.
I'm heading westbound.
Stepping up the fight on the drugs gangs, blighting lives and plaguing communities. This is the battle against those defying county boundaries to ply their illicit trade.
Please get up the door!
This is Project Medusa, a major initiative between North Yorkshire and Merseyside Police.
Going on intelligence that we've received, it could be from various different sources, it could be from members of the public, it could be from anywhere. It leads us to suggest that there's information out there that these people are dealing drugs. Therefore, a warrant has been granted by the Magistrates Court and executed today. So that's why we suspect there may be some evidence in relation to drugs dealing inside the premises.
More than 100 officers are taking part, using dogs, drones, fast response vehicles, and all backed up by specialist support teams. The idea is to create a hostile environment for anyone involved in criminality.
Serious and organised crime has its tendrils all over the country, even in a county as safe as ours. In essence, it's to disrupt serious and organised crime, in particular county lines. So these are the people that come into our county, push drugs, deal drugs, and actually are the people that are preying on vulnerable people. So using people's property and premises, vulnerable people to sell drugs from effectively.
Eddie and Phil are with Ben and Tom.
For those running the operation, it's about protecting the vulnerable as well as going after perpetrators.
We always have an issue with people, criminals, coming into areas where they see that there is a market to exploit. And that, I can't emphasise that word enough. These are criminals who are exploiting vulnerable members of the community. And we want to make sure that we are addressing that and we're making our communities as safe as possible.
Alongside the visible policing, covert teams are also operating. Uniformed officers race to a scene after reports of a gun being dumped.
As part of a joint operation with Merseyside Police, 2 of their officers in plain clothes have sighted a male who's been acting suspiciously in the bushes. He's then been seen to retrieve what they believe could be a firearms case. He's discarded that over a wall and then jumped back over. So he's currently looking for that case. They have detained a male who has got markers for firearms on the police systems.
An underwater search team is called in and a gun is later recovered. For covert officers on these kinds of operations, the threat of violence is ever present.
Last week, someone in Merseyside involved a constant pulled a gun on one of our colleagues. Yeah, that's the violence that we're dealing with.
Do you think sort of that's the kind of violence that could be used here?
My main concerns is if they've got weapons, knives, so they're always fearful that someone else, another OCG, is going to come and take their drugs.
Gone past the end of Renewable Gardens.
Police say the gangs groom vulnerable people who are then in debt and forced into running or storing drugs.
A vulnerable person, drug user, either use violence or be paying them in drugs to take over their address. And then once they've got their feet under the table, as in they're sat in there dealing or storing the stuff, if the person turns around and said, I'm not happy with this, then violence will be used.
A few miles away, another covert team are keeping surveillance on addresses believed to be involved with the supply and dealing of drugs.
Potentially the occupants are drug users and they're also dealing, or they're in debt maybe, and the other people in the address who have been detained, potentially they're the ones dealing the drugs from the address.
Police say these kind of operations to disrupt organised crime can be highly successful. This particular battle may be over for now, but the war on county lines continues. Phil Bottomer, BBC Look North.
So that's what police are doing, but as we heard, at the heart of this are vulnerable people, often children groomed by gangs to sell drugs. Children like Ben. He became involved in county lines at the age of 12. He died of a suspected drug overdose when he was just 16. I asked his mum, Kate, when she first became aware her son was being groomed.
It was actually really difficult to pinpoint, but he'd actually been offered drugs in the park at the age of 12, and obviously that raises huge suspicions right from the start. But it took a long time to be sure that that's what was going on. I think a lot of the signs that we're told to look out for are quite misleading. He certainly didn't have new trainers or lots of cash. What they did over time was got him more and more addicted, more and more distanced from school, and then started winding up his debts to a point where he felt he had no choice.
It's just tragic, Kate. Now, Ben, in that time, was arrested 26 times, but he was a victim.
He absolutely was, but there just aren't the resources. A number of times for those 26 arrests, we'd actually called for an ambulance, but because of strain on services, they'd sent the police instead. And the police can only operate within police powers, so Ben would end up arrested instead of supported.
What would have helped Ben?
We needed a lot more early intervention, but a lot of the sort of grassroots services have just disappeared, or they've been replaced by charities, which is great, but it's very patchy coverage and does become a postcode lottery. He also had severe mental health issues, and I think it's well documented that it is very difficult to get appointments with CAMS.
Ben did have a social care worker, didn't he? But there was support coming from lots of different agencies that no one was reading from the same hymn sheet, if you like.
Well, at one point there were 17 agencies involved in Ben's care, and understandably everybody thought that somebody else had a clear view on this and was dealing with it, and it meant that important information was lost, that wasn't shared. And it was really confusing for us as a family to know which service we should be approaching in any given situation.
Tragically, you lost your son, Ben, when he was just 16 years old, and I know you're desperate to support other families so they don't go through what you've been through. What needs to happen, Kate, to stop more children like Ben falling victim to these crimes?
Well, in the long term, we need a full overhaul of the services that are offered and training to those services to make sure that they understand that grooming is not all new trainers and a nice new phone. There's a lot that can be done by parents in the meantime. If they contact Parents Against Child Exploitation, we found them incredibly helpful. They're a charity in Leeds, and there's lots of online support. What I find really difficult is how often I'm hearing the same story. So although it's validating to know it's not just us, it is heartbreaking to see how widespread this problem is.
Kate, I know it's really difficult for you, but we really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you have been affected by the issues raised by this story, you can contact the BBC Action Line. Details are on your screen now. Next tonight, an inquest has heard that a 5-year-old boy who died after inhaling a drawing pin was the light of his parents' life. Carl Lewis was taken to Rotherham District General Hospital in October 2022, but a surgery team were unable to remove the pin. He was then transferred to Leeds, but died 2 days later. Carl's parents were listening in court as the inquest into his death began in Doncaster. Tom Ingle was there.
The coroner has heard Kyle was staying at his uncle's house when he is thought to have inhaled a pin. He was taken straight to Rotherham District General's emergency department. When his dad got there, Kyle was still alert and responsive, so much so he could put up a fight against wearing a hospital oxygen mask. But medics have told the court the situation was serious. Kyle was pale, grey, and showing all the signs of having his airway obstructed. A decision was made to take him straight to theatre, but surgeons were unable to remove the pin. It was pointing upwards, and forceps wouldn't grip it. A doctor has told the inquest there was no choice but to start an emergency tracheotomy. Kyle bled heavily and endured another 3 cardiac arrests, being revived each time. Later, Kyle was transferred from Rotherham to Leeds General Infirmary, where 2 days later his parents had to make the heartbreaking decision to turn off his life support system. They said he was the absolute light of their lives, and losing him has broken them beyond words. The pathologist who examined Kyle's body said the pin was still in his airway. She estimated it was almost 2.5 centimetres in length. The inquest is expected to continue here at Doncaster's Coroner's Court for another 3 days. Tom Ingle, BBC Look North, Doncaster.
Next tonight, we're going to look at how our councils are dealing with a big increase in reports of potholes. Now, this is a subject that really frustrates many of our viewers. You have been sending us your pictures, lots of you, saying your cars have been damaged and you've faced big bills. Some of these potholes are more than 20 centimetres deep and 1 metre across. Many of you have needed new tyres and expensive repairs. And lots of you have reported these potholes, but it does take a long time for anything to change. In the past year, Leeds City Council received 13,000 reports of potholes. That's up more than 40% on the previous year. They also said there's a £288 million road maintenance backlog in the city. And it's not just Leeds. The AA has seen a 5-year high in the number of call-outs for vehicles damaged by road defects. 632,000 of us have made those calls. Our reporter Abgiola has been out on the road for us today.
This crew in Middleton are repairing potholes. This is one of 13,000 reported to Leeds City Council in the last 12 months.
It's flat out all day, every day. We have 2 teams running out of our depot, but there's 3 local depots within the Leeds area, and they're at it all day, every day. We get a number of reports. We put extra resource as and when we can. We've got teams doing permanent repairs, resurfacing and so on, but it's a full-time job, yes.
Pothole reports in Leeds are up by 44% on the previous year. The council blames a £288 million backlog of road repairs.
On our network of 3,000 kilometres, that's a sizable backlog. So there is talk of more money coming our way in the near future, and we look forward to receiving that, but there are no details. So inevitably, with such a backlog, that means that potholes are occurring, and particularly in cold weather and the wet weather we've been having.
This pothole burst Vaughan Thomas's tyre on the Leeds Inner Ring Road.
I think I speak for many motorists when I say enough is enough. The roads are in such a state, and that is absolutely ridiculous. What's it going to take before anything's done throughout the region to correct these sort of safety issues?
The AA say they dealt with more than 600,000 pothole-related incidents across the country last year, which will have cost drivers almost £500 million. Local garages say they've seen an increase in customers needing repairs too.
Tyre damage, alloy wheels cracking, suspension components being damaged. We've even had to do recoveries before now to pull them in because blowouts, and they're no longer able to drive the car any further.
Do you think the roads are getting worse?
Yeah, definitely. We're seeing an increase in tyres damaged and suspension damage, absolutely.
In November, the government announced £8.3 billion over 11 years for local road maintenance, using money from the scrapped HS2 project. Drivers say they need better roads and faster fixes. Abby Jayola, BBC Look North, Leeds.
So what is causing the increase in these potholes? I've been speaking to Edmund King from the AA.
Well, there's no doubt that the weather has an effect on the roads and potholes. This last year, we've had record amounts of rainfall, and the rain almost erodes the surface of the roads and actually leads to more potholes.
People might be watching saying, hang on a minute, if the roads were fixed properly, we wouldn't have this issue. Is it all down to money?
It's not all down to money, and money has actually been increased, but it's about using that money effectively, and this is where we need more innovation. There is technology out there. There's a machine called the Pothole Pro that actually fixes potholes 6 times quicker than the old-fashioned process. And more importantly, it actually adds a permanent fix. So this is something we're saying to local authorities across Yorkshire today, is to invest in this technology for a longer-term solution.
When it comes to compensation, we know motorists are paying out £500 million last year and fixing issues to their vehicles caused by potholes. Is there any compensation when it comes to this?
Well, individuals can apply for compensation if their vehicle's damaged or indeed they get injured. But the likelihood of them winning compensation depends if that pothole has already been reported. The council say that they don't have to pay out if potholes haven't been reported because they can't expect to inspect every road every day. So if it's been reported, you have more chance of compensation.
So report those potholes. Edmund, good advice there. Thank you. There are calls for change following the death of a Leeds man who died after an allergic reaction to peanuts in a takeaway he'd ordered on Deliveroo. 23-year-old James Atkinson bought the pizza from Newcastle restaurant Dadail in 2020. He died in under 2 hours after eating less than 1 slice. His parents are calling for regulation for restaurants to publish ingredients lists. A coroner has also said they'd support a change in the law. The restaurant has since closed. A body believed to be a missing man from Leeds has been discovered by police. 64-year-old Graham Connell went missing while walking his dog in December. The body of the dog was discovered in the River Aire shortly afterwards. Today, officers found a man's body in the water at Woodlesford. Labour has recommitted to building more onshore wind farms if they form the next government. On a visit to Sheffield to launch a review of the party's infrastructure policy, the Shadow Chief Secretary to Treasury said a Labour government will work to speed up wind farm development. Onshore wind farms have been severely restricted since 2015, but rules were relaxed last year. Next month, we'll see the launch of a consultation in Calderdale for what could be the largest wind farm in England above Hebden Bridge.
We will invest in and build all of the different renewable energy technologies that we have available to us, whether that's offshore wind or onshore wind, which we will bring back as an acceptable form of electricity generation into this country, which has been blocked for so long by the Conservatives. There will be more wind farms in sea, floating offshore wind and offshore wind farms, but also on land, subject of course to the planning process. We need homegrown renewable energy that provides energy security, green jobs and lower bills for people.
Well, she's here, a vision in pink with the roundup of all the weekend sport. Good to see you, Sal.
Thank you, Amy. Well, we'll have all the football highlights in just a moment, but we start with cycling because we have a brand new European champion. GB cyclist Katie Marchant won gold at the European Track Championships in Apeldoorn. Marchant, who's from Leeds, is the first British woman ever to take the European 500-metre time trial title. She crossed the line just 0.037 seconds faster than the world champion to win the gold. And after 10 years with the GB cycling team, she says she's now the strongest she's ever been just 19 months after giving birth.
It's had its challenges, don't get me wrong, and, you know, like trying to balance being a mum and being an athlete. And I just feel over the last 6 months, I've really got to grips with that. And I've found like my happy place and what works for me and how I can balance being a mum and an athlete. And it's allowed me to give, 100% in absolutely every area. I see him on the barrier shouting, "Go, mummy!" And I have a different perspective on it all now, and I'm just living my best life.
Let's turn to football, and Leeds United brushed aside Cardiff City to keep pace with their rivals for automatic promotion in the Championship. This was their third goal, a swift counter-attack involving James, Somerville and Bamford, with a firm finish from Ruter. 3-0 the final score, and Leeds stay fourth in the table, but within 4 points of Southampton in third.
You know, it was a solid performance for us, from us today. We needed it, especially after recent away performances. We needed to come away with a solid performance, and I always talk about it, but to get a clean sheet away from home, score 3 goals is great for us.
In League One, Barnsley defeated Bristol Rovers 2-1 at Oakwell. Corey O'Keefe scored the Tigers' second goal to wrap up the 3 points for the hosts. And Harrogate made it back-to-back League Two wins with a 2-0 victory over Forest Green. Abraham Odo scored their second to help them move up to 9th in the table. And in ice hockey, the Sheffield Steelers moved 14 points clear at the top of the Elite League after a 6-1 win over Dundee Stars. The Steelers are in a strong lead position at the midpoint of the season, and they remain unbeaten on the road too after coming from behind to beat Manchester Storm 5-3 on Saturday. And returning to cycling now, it was a brilliant weekend for Yorkshire at the National Cyclocross Championships, especially for Skipton's Kat Ferguson. She roared her way to become the new British Junior Women's Champion, leaving the rest of the field behind right from the start line. And in the elite race, Imogen Wolfe finished a creditable 7th on a weekend that saw Shibden Cycling Club take several podium spots. A really good weekend for them. Back to you, Amy.
Yeah, amazing. You see how fast she scrambled up that hill?
It's amazing, yes, it is.
Fantastic, thanks, Sal. Now, bird watchers from across the UK have been descending on a Derbyshire beauty spot to catch a glimpse of these lovely exotic birds. They've been near record sightings of the colourful waxwing this winter. Reporter Simon Hare went for a look.
In the grey winter skies over this corner of Derbyshire recently has been a colourful visitor. A giant flock of waxwings have made their home at Hassop on the Monsell Trail near Bakewell.
This is the closest I've been to them ever.
Birdwatcher Fiona Maddock has made the short trip down from Chesterfield.
I absolutely love waxwings. I've been a birder from being a child. And it's been 11 years since I've last seen some.
Others have travelled from much further afield.
Come from Liverpool. Main reason we haven't had that many in Liverpool. Seen this on Facebook, and you're obviously saying there's 350. Looked last night, there's supposed to be 100. So it's worth making the journey. It took us about 2 hours.
It's almost like a cardinal with the little sort of...
Oh, you do know your stuff.
Steve Thorpe is secretary of the Derbyshire Ornithological Society, and he's lent me his binoculars for a closer look and given me an insight into this colourful Viking invasion.
So they'll come over from Scandinavia when the weather is particularly bad or if they run out of food, and we think that's exactly what they've done this year. This particular flock, we've counted up to 359, and the Derbyshire record is 400, so it's pretty close. So it's quite a good, good sized flock.
Have you got some good pictures?
Oh yeah, some lovely photos, yeah.
Where does it rate on the sort of birds that you're after and trying to photograph?
Oh, right up there for me, 'cause it's the first time I've ever saw them this year.
Very occasionally we get huge numbers like we've witnessed this winter, so we call that an eruption year, and they'll stay in one place until they've effectively stripped the berries from that particular area, and then they'll move on.
Simon Hare, BBC Look North, Derbyshire.
Let's hear now from a man who likes his birds. There are yellow weather warnings for snow and ice in place, aren't there, Paul? Across the region tomorrow and on Wednesday. So how bad is it going to be? Let's talk about the disruption that we're expecting.
Right, well, it's going to be a very cold week, coldest winter of winter so far. As regards disruption, I mean, we're talking about snow showers, usual suspects, later tonight, more especially later tomorrow into tomorrow night. Yorkshire Dales could get up to 10 centimetres by Tuesday night, and I think Transpennine routes later tomorrow, but more especially tomorrow night, could have a few problems to the east of here. Not a lot, and it doesn't look as though there's going to be widespread disruption, just local areas of problems.
And it's been really icy as well, hasn't it, the last
It has been icy. Well, there's still a lot of runoff, of course. The land's still saturated, so that is a big problem. The gritters are going to be out in force this week. But let me just show you a couple of pictures. Welcome back, by the way.
Oh, it's so nice to see you, Paul.
Lovely to see you. Look at that rainbow that I've put, especially for you. That was taken in Bridlington. Thanks very much for that. And it's been very rough along the coast in the last 24 hours. There's been some flooding in Hornsea actually this afternoon. That is a very windswept looking coastal strip. There's been a few snow showers too. If you've got any pictures, you want to send them to me on X, on Instagram, or on the Weather Watcher website, and I've put an update on the potential for snow on Instagram and on X in the last hour. Tomorrow's headline then, well, we've got that warning in place for snow showers, some of which will be frequent, especially over the Pennines later on. We're in the cold all week, a lot of dry sunny weather this week, but the most important thing is it's not going to last too long, because by the weekend the Atlantic winds through, and by Sunday temperatures will be back in double figures, and next week looks very mild indeed, so very topsy-turvy indeed. Now, we've had 1 or 2 snow showers, Filey, Flamborough this afternoon, but for most it's dry and it's clear, and it's a very straightforward forecast tonight. Bitterly cold out there, a significant wind chill. I think later we could pick up a risk at least of 1 or 2 snow showers coming into the Pennines, but most of us will be dry with temperatures down to -4 degrees Celsius. So tomorrow's high water time, Scarborough 7:41 and Bridlington at 7 minutes past 8. So most of us off to a dry, bright start with some sunshine, but the wind will back off to the west, and that could encourage some snow showers onto the Pennines through the morning. A longer spell of snow for the Yorkshire Dales, bit of patchy snow into the Vale of York, but this is a cold front that will sink southwards through tomorrow evening. So if there's going to be any disruption by the end of tomorrow, it's going to be across the Yorkshire Dales, temperatures coming in at around 3 degrees. Now I'm going to extend this sequence through tomorrow evening, and just watch this weather front slowly sink southwards, so several centimetres to come across the Pennines tomorrow night. A few snow showers further east, but this thing does clear out of the way by first light Wednesday morning, leaving with it a lot of ice and a lot of frost. So back to the medium term, and we're looking at Wednesday through to Friday. Again, it's mainly dry and sunny, very cold indeed, but what a change around into the weekend. The Atlantic winds through, it clouds over, we see some rain spreading in from the west. Next week, temperatures could be as high as 12 degrees. That's the forecast.
Flannelette sheets and hot water bottles are called.
Is that right?
It's nice to see if you missed me.
Yes.
See, hear the reluctance.
I'm obviously not feeling too well.
Hannah Gray's here with your late news tonight, and I will be back tomorrow, so will Mr. Sunshine. Bye-bye.